Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Welcome, everybody. We love Second Fridays on Big Blend Radio because we get to talk to representatives from different destinations and travel writers who are all part of the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. So we get to have hear stories and about destinations not only across the country but around the world. So check out the organization if you're a writer or traveler. Go to ifwtwa.org, and I encourage you to follow the hashtag on social media too, because you'll see the world. It's awesome. And today we're super excited to chat with Vickie Ashford-Thompson about the Greater-Birmingham-Alabama area. Nancy, you and I just drove through there, and we're like waving at Vickie. We were waving at our friends, the Joiner Band, going, dudes, we're here, but we're driving through, and it's 3 in the morning, but we're going to be waving as we go back down to Florida, so that's cool. We're going to be heading south away from snow when this airs. So we're looking forward to some warmth, but I encourage everyone to go to the website. It is Birmingham.al.org, but isn't it in Birmingham? I've got to ask Vickie on this because now I'm looking at what I did. Vickie, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on.
Hey, this is great. It is in Birmingham.al.org, right?
It is actually in Birmingham.com. We had a either one of those would work, Birmingham.al.org or in Birmingham.com. We have both of those live at once.
I love your website. It's actually really different than other visitor bureau websites in that I dig it because you've got all these neighborhoods and you zoom in on the map and then here's what you're going to see in this neighborhood. I got stuck in there this morning for quite a while.
Yeah.
And by the time I was done, I was like, you could plan staying in Birmingham for a month and still not see everything.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. There are lots of pockets, so you really can do that. It's a lot to do and see in each of those areas, and that's why they're on there because Birmingham is just such a diverse city, and each little area kind of has its own thing. So we have 99 neighborhoods in Birmingham, so you can kind of get to see a little bit of everything, and they all have their certain charm. So. You get something different everywhere you go.
Wow, that's cool. Well, Birmingham was known as the Magic City because it really started. It had an industrial history, which I didn't think about. I know when we were up in Pennsylvania, we went through the whole the Industrial Revolution. I was like, dude, this is like going back to school, but I'm seeing it right. This is real,
Right. Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that about Birmingham until I got into your website today.
Yes, and Birmingham actually, way back when, was known as Little Pittsburgh because it was so similar to Pittsburgh in the industrial parts there. So yeah, it was that way until maybe the early 70s, late 60s, when the University of Alabama at Birmingham started here, and then everything started to change and. The industrial plants were closing down because we were looking for cleaner air and just a cleaner city. So the medical field took over, and the University of Alabama at Birmingham is the largest employer in the state of Alabama. So we turned to something totally different, and the university, the hospital there is that is actually where our COVID doses will be going because it's the largest hospital, and it's done so much. It's been so instrumental in so many research projects with having to do with heart transplants and transplants in general and things of that nature. So we're on the map for a lot of things, and we're actually part of the research. One of the first, not the vaccine itself, but when they were looking into formulating vaccines, our University of Alabama at Birmingham was had a vital role in that as well. So the medical field kind of took over the industrial field, and so they are the biggest employer now in the state. So we're proud of that.
That is awesome. I mean, who knew? You went from, industrialization to, hey, we want clean air. and then into education, and then here it is on the medical front, just,
Yes.
paving the way there. So that is exciting to hear. The other
Yes,
thing
it
that I
is.
know that you're really big on, too, is civil rights history. And the first thing that we really heard about was travel writer Debbie Stone was visiting Birmingham right as the National Monument and the trail came into fruition and became part of the National Park Service. And I know we were chatting a little earlier that not only do it's not a museum that you have, but it's a civil rights institute, which means that to me it's like more of a living thing than here's history and dust is settling. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like something that's moving forward, which I think is very exciting to have that
Right.
happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because what you'll find there is going to be, we have all these different setups in there that shows different parts of history. So we don't have just the civil rights history. We also have human rights. So you'll have human rights, civil rights, and what you'll find there, as you mentioned, it moves forward. It's not just something that we go and look back on. We come up to modern day. So you'll find not only things that happened back in the 60s, but you'll find it comes up to where we had the first black mayor in Birmingham. And in recent years, whenever the Civil Rights Institute had money to do renovations, they went out and got people were always bringing things from that were part of the movement to the Civil Rights Institute to share, as you would a museum where people just bring their families things that they want to share with everybody. So one of the things that was brought from the city of Birmingham's yard where they kept all of the automobiles from the pool of cars, and one of the things that was there was one of the tanks that Bull Connor, Commissioner Bull Connor, used to spray water and do different things to the protesters back in the 60s. So they cleaned that up. So that tank is actually that actual tank is in the Civil Rights Institute. So you hear the stories, and then you walk in, and that's the tank. So it was like a war zone, and it was. It was the police officers and the commissioner against the black citizens of Birmingham. So you'll see things like that. The jail cell that Martin Luther King Jr., the door to the jail cell is in the Civil Rights Institute. So as you're going through, I go, whenever I go there to take a journalist or just to go on my own, there's just so much reading that you can do as you're going through. And I always see school-age children, they have assignments to do while they're there. So they'll have their paper, their notebook, and they're supposed to be looking for certain things and writing about certain things. So, and that's one of the other reasons it's called an institute, because you really, when you leave, you have learned so much. There's a section in there for oral history, so you can hear the voices of those that were involved in the movement. So it really is something that, it's so not so far removed from today's, what we're going through today when you go through the Civil Rights Institute. Yeah.
In the oral history, too, when you hear Martin Luther King Jr. speak, you hear those recordings, and like Malcolm X, right? And you hear them speak, and they speak with such power and conviction, but positive power. And it was like, change is going to come. It's like, I just think Sam Cooke, man, I'm just hear him. Like, I think that should be like a song of Birmingham, right? And that's where it came from,
Exactly.
He marched with him, and we've had Carla Cook on the show too, and so it's really so she's been carrying the torch, for Sam Cooke, which has been really she's awesome. She can sing.
Wow.
Tell you what, she can sing. But when you hear stories, I think especially for the youth, when they can see what's going on in the country now, it can resonate with them. And I think it's also really deep because the story is, teenagers were killed during this time frame, with the bombings. And so for them to really identify, like, the sacrifices and the need to move forward, it just seems that we keep talking about it's moving forward, right? That's the term for today. Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. And we, of course, with social justice issues being at the forefront now, I can say that, of course, this all happened during COVID, and before COVID and before George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all the others that are in the news and that's making all of the protests that are going on now. We were already getting tons and tons of visitors that wanted to see what our civil rights history is all about, and so we can only imagine how much that people are going to want to see what's going on now, and come in and see where all of this happened. And you mentioned young people. It's just so invigorating to me to see the young people taking the lead in what's going on today and being heard. Not even just now with this, but even when with the shooting in Texas and Florida and all these other places, Parkland shooting, and the young people said we're not going to stand for this anymore. It was the same type of thing with civil rights history back in the 60s. The Children's Crusade was a huge part of Birmingham's role in the civil rights movement, because adults were at the point where they started using children. Their jobs were in jeopardy. If they were out there protesting or being involved in anything, they couldn't go to work, or if their bosses found out they were going to be involved. So that's when Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who was responsible for bringing Dr. King to Birmingham in the first place. So everything pretty much started with Reverend Shuttlesworth and Bethel Baptist Church. And he brought Dr. King here, and that was something that they cooked up, because the children were being used because of what was going on with their parents, but then at the same time, the children were being used because the schools were segregated. And so Reverend Shuttlesworth would take his kids and try to enter them into these segregated schools, and he and some others, Mr. Armstrong, others, would try to integrate these schools by marching their kids up and sort of like in Arkansas, we're trying to integrate these schools. And so the children were so vital to all of what was going on back then. And as I mentioned earlier, some of them are still in Birmingham or in the area. Some have written books about their experiences and are on hand to talk to people about what happened with them back in the 60s, and to kind of bring it to life. You're looking at a person that was hosed. One young lady, her hair was about pulled out of her head because of the pressure from the fire hoses. So, to talk to someone that was that close to what went on, it is unbelievable. But so it's just so authentic, the experiences that you find when you visit Birmingham. These people tell their stories and just give you a firsthand account of what happened.
Wow. It's really amazing when you go back and you look at these things. I can understand. I think museums and places that showcase what actually happened and have the photos and the recordings are so important, because it would be so easy to pretend that this country never did anything like that. It would just ignore it, say it didn't happen. Oh, that's an old wives' tale. It's a myth. And I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of people that would prefer that to happen rather than
people who don't believe in the Holocaust.
Exactly.
So.
Right.
So there's always that faction of, oh, no, that can't happen. No, it didn't happen. And so these places that educate, I mean, if you can't educate somebody over what happened, you can't change it. And it takes years to make a change for whatever reason. We have the internet now. It shouldn't take that long, but I don't know, man. We've lived in other countries, and I'm sure there were prejudices of different kinds, but I don't know why this country is so prejudicial against one faction of its population.
It's hard to understand. It really
I don't get it.
It's hard to understand, and I've just observed some, and just to hear the stories, and it does not make sense, how this came to be and how it was accepted so much. And when you go into the Civil Rights Institute, there's a film. I think the film is about 8 minutes long, and wherever it kind of gives the history of Birmingham and what was happening, and they talk about how the president said, okay, now there's going to be no more of this, this segregation. Everything, it's coming to an end. And then at the very end of it, it says the narrator says, the president says this, but Birmingham doesn't listen. They're quiet. They're quiet, and it just the whole thing just goes quiet. You hear nothing because it's like they heard what was said. This is unlawful. Stop doing this. And then it says Birmingham doesn't listen. And then the screen rises, and you go right into the segregated soda fountains where the whites and blacks were separate. So it's like they hear what is wrong, and it's legislated. You can't do this, but it's like we are still going to do this. So it's like it's really hard to believe and hard to understand how that even happens. But that's the world we live in, unfortunately.
And I think what's important though is that Birmingham is not only just saving their history, and it's being interpreted. It's like people can go, and the way you're doing it with the oral history and being able to hear what people went through and see the cars, see the see the actual jail cell door where where Martin Luther King wrote the letter. It's like it's you'd be able to go there and walk. Like that's how when I was a little girl in South Africa, Nancy, she's a wildlife artist and a painter, predominantly. And while we were there, she did a 2.5-year tour, traveling the country and selling her art and taking commissions and raising money for the Cancer Association. And at the same time was working with the country's SATOR, the tourism office for the country, and doing a series of paintings. We went to every single park and historic site. I think we went on every road you could possibly go, right? Except for every little bush road. But so we went to places, and it was really, because we've done so much traveling, it was really that tour that I went to a lot of different schools, and I was bored in school because I knew that there was this big world out there, and I didn't grasp history until she took me on this tour, and I was 13 when we started, 13, 14, and it was going to Ishlawanda Rock, where the Zulus were fighting the Boers and the British. And so here is where Shaka Zulu stood, and then seeing the mass grave sites, everything in my body just, even now when I talk about it, from that point on, like when we finished the tour and I homeschooled on the road, and my history grades went from like down there. And yet I was a big history, I read historic novels, all that. I just was bored with, and, the dates and whatever. My history grades, I ended up, graduating with that being my top thing. And it was because of going to that experience. As a kid, it hit me so big. Seeing the mass graves where they were just whitewashed stones piled up in like a pyramid, and understanding that they didn't even know who died where,
Exactly.
Wow.
This year going to Gettysburg was like that. For me, like I still can't even. I'm like, I talk about I was verklempt. It's like how big this was, and so that's what I think is so valuable to what you're doing. Like Little Rock, we went to where the Little Rock 9 at the Central High School, which is an actual national park that is actually a high school. So, but to actually hear those stories, because they had some of the news clippings, and you could see, how people reacted, and that Little Rock 9 story is very similar. It's all connected, like you were saying, with the youth. Even now I'm getting goosebumps, and that's what I think is so brilliant about your city. Yet at the same time, going on your website, here's all this history that is culturally rich, and at the same time, something we really need now to learn about and revisit and move forward. Your city looks very progressive from what we would think. Going on your web, we have to come. We're going to come see you guys. We're coming to Birmingham for sure. Because I'm like, you guys look like a big party, man. You guys are
town.
you got all this history. You got all the industrial stuff. You got the civil rights history. And I liked it that it's social justice moving forward today and human rights. But it looks like there's all kinds of nature stuff to do. You kept, you wanted fresh air. It looks like you got it, and places to enjoy it. But it looks like you guys have a lot of parties and a lot of art and got a young vibe to it, even though we're talking about all this.
Yeah, it is something. We have one of the youngest mayors in Birmingham, Mayor Woodfin, and I believe this is going into the mayor's third year. But a lot of things were in the hopper, ready to explode with Birmingham right before he took this term that he's in right now. But it is a very, very progressive city. Has not always been that way. We've had our share of people taking sides against the city progressing, and people saying, we don't have the money for that. The way Birmingham is set up, it's the metropolitan Birmingham. Birmingham, all of Birmingham is just almost about 1 million people. Jefferson County, which is the largest county, is where Birmingham is located. So, we're in the center part of the state of Alabama. We are Central Alabama is what we're known as, because we're kind of about an hour and a half from the northernmost part, which is Huntsville, and then about an hour and a half from Montgomery, which you still can go like another hour or so to Mobile and the beaches. But Birmingham is just kind of sitting right there in the center, and it's a very cosmopolitan place. And you mentioned the vibe. We actually introduced our tourist guide is just talking about this vibe that Birmingham has, that some people just find it hard to explain because people have these preconceived notions about Birmingham, and even people that realize that we're not back in the dark ages of the 60s, and we're not, just still being that way, but they don't realize how far we've come. And if you were to look at our website or our tourist guide or whatever, you will find that that it's not such a secret anymore. It had been one of the best kept secrets, but in 1982, one of our best chefs, our award-winning chefs, opened a restaurant, Highlands Bar and Grill, back in like 1982, and there's been so many great chefs that have studied under him and have opened their own restaurants, and they have won all types of awards. Back in 2018, Chef Stitt, Frank Stitt, won for the best restaurant in the country, the James Beard Award. And he had been up for it like 11 times, and he finally won. And the same year that he won, his pastry chef won for the best pastry chef in the country, James Beard Award that same year. And she does pastries for all three. He has 3 restaurants, so she does all of the pastry work for those restaurants. So the food scene just started to grow and grow and grow, and so much so that now we are known by many, ourselves mostly, as the dinner table of the South, because we have so many. The cuisine here is just so diverse. It goes from one extreme to the next. I love to tell the story of I was supposed to be taking these Italian travel writers. We had done civil rights. They had enjoyed that, and we had run late because we had the best tour guide on the map taking us on a tour, Barry McNeely. He is just phenomenal. So we had done a tour with him, and it's always hard to break away from him giving you a tour. And so if we went to lunch, if we were to go to lunch, we would be late getting to our next destination. So the guys were like, we just can't, we need to hear this. And so I said, well, I'm afraid you're going to miss going to Bethel, which you have to go there because that's where it all started. You have to go there. So please, we got to do something. And they're like, oh, forget about lunch. And I said, well, Barry, where can we take them? And he goes, take them to Gus's Hot Dogs. And I'm thinking, what? I was about to take them to this great restaurant or whatever. And so I couldn't say what. So they were like, yeah, hot dogs. I had no idea that these guys had never once had a hot dog.
No
never
way.
once.
Oh.
And their eyes, I took pictures of them, and their eyes were just so big because they had, and you just take for granted that everybody's had a hot dog, right? But they loved it. So this was
cool.
There's a huge Greek influence in Birmingham restaurant owners. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about. But they were immigrants, and they were actually they were treated sort of in the same manner that blacks were. They were discriminated against. So when you run across a restaurant in Birmingham, very often the names will not suggest that it's a Greek restaurant because they did not want that to be widely known that they were, so that they would be, that they wouldn't be persecuted. So you'll find restaurants like Mickey's, Gus's, Pete's. Everything just has a name, Johnny's, and they are all connected in some way or another. But they have we.
I want a hot dog, but I do have to ask. I'm trying to find out what's up with the fried pies. Like, what are we talking about? Sweet pie, savory pie, like fried pies. Like, this is now sounding like exactly what my belly needs.
Well, fried pies. You can. There's a lot of different bakeries where you can get those around here. And I'm trying to think if there are any restaurants. I don't know if there's any restaurants that will carry them. Probably we have and I was mentioning the variety of restaurants. So you go from a place like Gus's that has the hot dogs and what we call here a meat and three, and it should have a meat and 2 or 3 vegetables. They call it meat and 3. So you go from that, and then you go all the way up to the Frank's restaurants with the white linen tablecloths and the waiters that scrape the crumbs from your table and lay the napkin in your lap type of thing. So there's something for everybody in this area. So
and listen, peanuts. I have to bring up peanuts too because one of our friends, Donna, she owns the Peanut Patch in Yuma, Arizona. She sent us on a story mission across the country to she wants farm stories, and I'm like, I just found a peanut place, another peanut place, and so that's a big deal too.
Oh yeah, and that roaster is over 100 years old that they roast the peanuts on. You have to go there, and the area that it's in, it's one of the older parts of Birmingham that area still has so much charm. They still have the cobblestone streets where the peanut place is located.
No way.
And so a lot of the up and coming businesses have opened in that area. So if you didn't know, you would think that's just an old rundown area. But there's a young lady that her name escapes me right now, but she's famous for wedding dresses. People come from all over to buy her wedding dresses. Her place is there. Her boutique is there. There's a lot of tech companies. There's actually, this is the funniest thing. There's actually because the railroad used to come through there. There's a caboose that's still in that area that has been turned into office space. So everything, things like that, you'll find. That's why I said Birmingham is very progressive. Just along that area, people have just that real estate in that area has just gone. Downtown real estate has gone up tremendously because it has gone through a rebirth, and so a lot of things were built around just trying to develop various areas of downtown and repurposing some of the old buildings, the department stores, places that I went to as a kid to get my Easter dress. Some of the places that were segregated back in the 60s have reopened as the McWayne Center used to be Loveland's. It's a science center now. The Pizitz is a place, it's a food hall with various independent restaurants, and then on the lower level, and then the upper level are these high-end apartments. So a lot of places have just been repurposed, and it has a nightlife. It has the vibe you mentioned before.
Yeah,
that's what you can find in that area. I've gone down there to take journalists when all of this first started happening, and I'm like, Birmingham is still open because at nighttime, it'll be like certain little pockets of the south side or somewhere like that where you can get a drink, but you will be hard pressed to be able to find a very, very cool bar or a restaurant in the area now. Even as COVID has taken a turn and made people do their business a little differently, they're finding ways to still operate. So, but it's been really fun to watch. How people have dealt
cocktails. That's what it is.
Yes, exactly. You are absolutely right. But
I wanted to touch on that with COVID and your dining scenes and the history, and it just seems such a cool city, and I love hearing about cobble streets. But Nancy and I, and I know are interested also in the outdoors, because I think a lot of people are out. There's the arts, there's entertainment, but being outdoors is something I think that especially because you're in the South, people can go out in winter and play.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So
you're
what,
right.
What can you do
and
outdoors?
Yeah, and that was one of the things that was interesting when COVID came about, was that we have a whole section that we devote to the outdoors because of that. Whether it's golfing or hiking or zip lining or climbing walls, or we have rock preserves, different things like that. It's vast. It is not just in one place. One place that is particular I'm wild about, because just because I'm on the board of directors there, but I love it. It's Ruffner Mountain Park, and Ruffner is a park that's owned by the city of Birmingham. Ruffner has about 11 miles of nature trails, and they are they range from different from extremely hard or hard to do, to those that you can take a guided hike, or you can just go on your own and do something very easy. But the location of Ruffner is like smack dab in the middle of town. It's not in a very remote place. You're driving down First Avenue, and when you get to 81st Street, you make a right, and you just drive, and you just start going up this hill, and you're at Ruffner Mountain. And it's a nature preserve. It is the coolest thing. So, but that's one of the places. But we have, just all types of trails. Red Mountain Park opened within the last probably 10 years or so, and it's got about 1,200 acres. It has an area for zip lining. They recently acquired, I think it was probably last year, acquired funding for a dog park, so you don't have to walk your dog on the same area where the hikers are. So they made, and it's beautiful. People are always making sure they're going there. So it's kind of cool. And one of the things that started all of the progression downtown was the creation of Railroad Park. So Birmingham has these railroads that run through it, especially downtown. So we have what's called Railroad Park, and it's about a little over 20 acres there. It's got so much green space, and it's won some awards from LEED. It's really something to see. So, and that's right downtown. But when they were building the park, cutting out the architecture for the park, that whole area was just so vast and great that they just wanted to do some other things there. So there we have a AA baseball team. We are the minor leagues for the Chicago White Sox, and there was a park built, and it's Regents Field after the Regents Bank, but it is beautiful. It's in a lovely place because it is downtown. And you can it's cool because it's across from, you can see Children's Hospital from there. So it's like you've got a view. If you live in the area, you can really actually look over and see that a baseball game is going on. And then those of us that are sitting in the stands, it's like we can look across and we know that children at the Children's Hospital of Alabama can look out their windows and know that a baseball game is going on and see it. So it's in a really cool place, and the year that it was built, it also won an award by, I think it was like Ballparks of America or something like that, some ballpark magazine. I can't remember the actual award that it won, but the first year that it was open, it was the best new ballpark. So that area just has grown, and with people wanting to be outside when we had the restrictions with COVID. The mayor was like, please feel free to go outside, but you need to continue to walk. This is not the time to have picnics and just sitting around and that type of thing. So people were out riding their bikes, and they were walking, and they were running, and that type of thing. So that's closer into Birmingham. But if you go out just a little south of Birmingham, but it's still considered, to be in our area, is Oak Mountain State Park, and it has won numerous awards for its it's mountain bike trails. So that's
cool.
a great place to go to. Yeah. So outdoors
Mountain
is
biking is a big deal. That's like
it
taking the
is.
country by storm. It's like that's what people are doing. It's all these different levels, and we went on a mountain biking trail system in Hot Springs this year, and it was just like this whole thing with all these different colors. Like this blue is, I don't know. There's all these different levels according to, and you get out of the way when they're coming through, man. And then you can see some people at the beginning, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but my friend's making me do it. You know,
right?
To me, we ain't going on no bicycle because that Nancy, you and I will like, you know, we'll do it as a wine cup holder.
No,
you know,
tricycles.
tricycles
tricycles with a cup holder and wine.
Yes, that's it. That's
hey, nobody said what you have. Nobody said what you have to have in your cup holder, right?
No. But this sounds,
That's
you
right.
know, Birmingham sounds amazing. I know that we've driven through Alabama this year, quite a bit. You know, it's just I would say actually over the last year we've been through, and we haven't had the opportunity to really stop and hang out. And we've, you know, Birmingham, Montgomery seems to be on our pathways as we're going up and down. And I know that we went on the going back to history, the Selma Trail. We went on that this year. We drove part of that, which was iconic in regards to civil rights history. But how far are you from Tuskegee? Because I remember seeing signs for it and really getting like, I want off the highway. How far do you think you are? Am I totally off in a different side of Alabama?
Oh, well, it's south of us. So I'm thinking Tuskegee's probably. But now when we talk about civil rights history, we include you know, Tuskegee in that too. And that's why I was mentioning, you know, that when you talk about civil rights history, you know, of course people like to talk about it as a trail, and we are certainly part of the trail. But we just like to remind people that it is it goes all over Alabama, you know, and then goes into Georgia and Tennessee and all of that. But you know, you can you can go from you can go from Selma, Montgomery, and Birmingham and do all of that. You know, from on a day you can do a little bit of all of that from a day. A lot of times people will come and come from Birmingham, stay in Birmingham, and then kind of go and see Selma, Montgomery, and then come back to Birmingham and stay and kind of do what's in Birmingham to do. So it's easy to mostly because we've got and now Montgomery has more hotels than they have had before. But when you talk about even though the capital is Montgomery, Birmingham is still the largest city in the state. So you're going to find more hotels and more things to do here in Birmingham. So a lot of times people will stay here and do other things. If they're doing civil rights and they're going to go to Montgomery and Selma and all of that, they can do shopping and all sorts of things before they go or as part of their itinerary. I usually like to, try to kind of keep it, not all so deep and so heavy, but kind of throw some things in that'll give you, a little relaxed mood as
little
well.
Hot dogs in there.
Yeah, oh yeah. And retail therapy is always good. So we throw a little bit of that in there too.
That's good. Oh man, I'm so glad you could join us today. And we're, next time we drive, we'll hopefully get to stop this time. I want to say this. I want to give Alabama a shout out on having. I would say now Nancy and I travel a lot. And we do a lot of driving, and rest areas are a big part of you need to pull over and rest and have your picnic. And I would say Alabama is at the top of our list of having the best rest areas in the country. And I'm not kidding.
I believe that.
You have cats. There's 2 rest areas with cats, and they're taking care of the cats. So I'm just saying, I don't know what's going on in Alabama, but there's rest areas with a rocket in them. You got all kinds of things going on in your rest area.
Yeah, well, our state tourism, our tourism director, and this has been going on for a while, just about as long as I've been here. He is so into making sure that his whole staff, and he makes sure that every city is involved in making sure those welcome centers are 100% up to par, and then some.
Wow.
They have
yeah.
they have a retreat for the people that work there, and they love being there and taking care of people when they come through the state. So I hear what you're saying, and I'll make sure I pass that along, because I know what you're talking about, because he makes sure that each city gives this welcome center staff all of the information they need. So you're not going to find someone saying, I don't know what there is to do in Birmingham. You have to ask them. The closer you get to Birmingham, they are well versed from one end of the state to the next. So we're very proud of that as well.
That's cool.
People keep asking, like, how have you been driving, this last year with COVID? And I'm like, well, rest areas are actually cleaner than what you would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And some states are better than others. Some have gardens and everything. But I will say, Nancy, we're thinking of doing a map of rest areas across the country, like an interactive one with photos and everything, because I think they're so important. They get left off of the tourism conversation a lot. And and it's important.
They're important.
Safety. They're important for safety reasons.
Right. You're right.
And you need to breathe. You need to let your dog out and all of that.
Right.
And keep them away from the cat people, especially the Alabama.
and you know what? We just got last week. I think it was last week. They delivered to all of the counties tons and tons of boxes of hand sanitizer, face mask, and sanitary wipes, so that they can be in the welcome centers. And if you come to the welcome center and you don't have a mask or you don't have hand sanitizer or whatever, we're giving that to you, and it has I got one right here. It's got the state of Alabama tourism on it, so you'll get a souvenir and a face mask. Take it all in responsibly in Sweet Home, Alabama. So we've got those.
Right on. Right on. I
we're
like
making sure people are safe. So we take people coming through and visiting, taking the time to visit our great state and the cities in our state. We don't take that lightly. We love having them, and we want them to be safe while they're here.
Oh, I love that. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much. We got to play a song after our conversation today. Our music choice has shifted into a different gear, and it's one of our favorite songs that we ever played. And this is airing January, New Year, and one of our friends, Kwame Benet, and the Shakedown. They are up in New Jersey now. They went from Harlem to New Jersey because family living happened to them, which is awesome. Kwame is a very and his whole band, an incredibly positive human being who reminds us that peace, love, and positivity, those three things, go hand in hand, and to move forward that way. And he recorded his last album is Universal Love, Roots Rock and Universal Love. That's what it's called. And this is the title track. It's Universal Love, old Jimmy Cliff song, and he recorded with the guy from Living Color. So it's a very just a beautiful song, and I feel like this is a song for Alabama, Universal Love, because that's what you guys are feeling. Like, just we haven't hung out there, but our conversation and what we've learned so far, and just going to your website and seeing how vibrant and moving forward everything is. This is a good song. So here it is from Kwame Benet, Shakedown. Up with them at KwameBenetShakedown.com. But here it is, Universal Love. And don't forget, Birmingham, go to the website, In-Birmingham.com. Did I get it right?
Cool.
Yes, we'd love to have you.
All righty. Everybody's going to get there. There's peanuts and hey.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with peanuts and Coca-Cola? What is that? Is that an American thing?
With it?
Yeah, people putting peanuts in Coca-Cola. I know
we've done that since we were kids. I just picked it up, and I haven't done it since I've been an adult. But boy, did I do it when I was a kid! It's just something about that salty and sweet.
So what do? You drink your Coke down a little bit, and then you put the peanuts inside the Coke bottle, or Coke. Would you do the bottle or?
Either when we did it, they were bottles, and as soon as we opened it, we just dropped them in. We just dropped them in from the start.
We're doing that for Christmas.
I know. Cool.
Tell me what you think about it. Tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
I will.
I'm going to add a little rum to it. Can we add rum?
Nancy has to go off things
rum
to it
and
now.
Coke
Here,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah, when you're an adult, they put peanuts at the bar, Nancy, on the side.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, man. All right. So, everyone, InBirmingham.com, go check it out and get out there as fast as you can, and we'll see you at the meat pie and hot dog stand. But here it is, Universal Love. You take care, Vickie. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it so much. Y'all take care, and happy holidays.
You
Same
too.
to you.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Beyond the family boundary, go beyond the tribal boundary, and beyond social boundary, yes, beyond national boundary. Beyond religious boundaries and beyond political boundaries, yes, beyond commercial boundaries and beyond sexual boundaries, yes, beyond racial boundaries. We need